What if everything you thought you knew about Prince Harry's health was a lie? A top surgeon has just exposed the shocking truth. Harry didn't just collapse from exhaustion. He underwent a high-risk brain procedure, and the shocking part? Meghan allegedly hid it from the public to protect their empire. In a jaw-dropping reveal, leaked hospital records and a courageous whistleblower are confirming that Prince Harry's medical emergency was far more serious than we were told. Behind closed doors, Harry collapsed from a critical neurological issue, requiring immediate surgery. But what's even more chilling is what Meghan reportedly did next. Instead of informing the royal family or the press, Meghan allegedly instructed hospital staff to keep quiet, fearing that revealing the truth could damage their lucrative Netflix and media deals. In this explosive video, we're diving into the shocking details of what really happened and how the cover-up could change everything for Harry, Meghan, and their brand. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The world has always watched Prince Harry closely. From the moment he was born, as the second son of Princess Diana and Prince Charles, his every move has been under the magnifying glass. His life, a complex mix of duty, privilege, and public scrutiny, took a wild turn when he chose to break away from the royal family, alongside his wife, Meghan Markle. They sought freedom, privacy, and a new life away from the royal spotlight. But what happens when the private health struggles of a royal figure, someone we thought we knew, are hidden from the world? When the truth about a man's collapsing health is suppressed to protect a family's image, what does that reveal about the lengths to which the royal couple might go to preserve their carefully crafted public persona? This is not just another royal gossip story. It's the shocking revelation that Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, suffered a serious medical emergency that was concealed from the public until now. A top surgeon has exposed a truth about Harry's health, a truth that Meghan Markle has reportedly been hiding to protect their brand deals and their carefully cultivated image. But why? What could be so devastating that it would cause them to deceive the world about his well-being? Could it be that Meghan, in her desperation to maintain control over their media presence, made decisions that would further isolate Harry? In this investigation, we'll take a deep dive into the hidden truth about Prince Harry's health crisis, a crisis so serious that it required a high-risk emergency brain procedure after he collapsed privately. But that's not the full story. This isn't just a tale of medical procedures and hospital stays. This is about the lengths to which Meghan Markle allegedly went to keep this from the public eye, even as Harry's health teetered on the brink. According to leaked hospital records, Meghan is said to have made a shocking request to doctors and hospital staff. Don't alert the royal family, don't call the media, and most importantly, don't let anyone know that Harry's collapse was more than just exhaustion. The stakes were higher than ever. Harry's life could have been at risk, yet Meghan's primary concern, according to those involved, was the impact on their public image. Imagine the gravity of that situation. A young prince, beloved by millions, secretly undergoing emergency brain surgery while the woman by his side decides that the royal family and the public must never know. Why? Because it would damage their Netflix deals, their carefully curated brand, and perhaps even their future standing in the media spotlight. This story, one that could change the trajectory of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex forever, begins in a private moment, away from the prying eyes of the press. It was supposed to be a time for Prince Harry to recover, to take a break from the relentless pressure that had defined so much of his life. Yet, what was supposed to be a period of rest quickly became a nightmare that only those closest to him knew the full extent of. According to insiders and hospital records that have been leaked to the public, Prince Harry's collapse was not the result of a simple bout of exhaustion as Meghan allegedly claimed in public statements. In fact, he had been suffering from a serious neurological issue that required urgent and immediate treatment. Despite the severity of the situation, Meghan allegedly insisted that the incident be framed as nothing more than the prince being exhausted from the pressures of life. After all, the narrative of a tired prince was easier to digest, more palatable for the public, and above all, less damaging to the family's carefully manufactured public image. But what happened behind closed doors tells a far different story. According to hospital staff, Prince Harry was in critical condition at one point, requiring swift medical intervention that could have altered the course of his life. The medical team was told by Meghan, at least according to those who were present, not to disclose the severity of the situation to anyone, least of all, the royal family. For Meghan, the idea of the royal family finding out about her husband's medical emergency was too risky. It wasn't just about his health anymore. It was about the brand that she and Harry had been building, the empire they were constructing in Hollywood and beyond. The question remains, why would she choose to keep something so dangerous under wraps? Why prioritize an image over her husband's well-being? The answer may lie in the pressure they felt from their growing deals with Netflix, Spotify, and other ventures that required a flawless public image. The Sussex brand was built on the narrative of a fresh start, a couple stepping out from under the royal microscope and forging their path. But what happens when the public believes that you are the picture of health? When the facade is more important than the truth? The surgeon involved in the case, who later broke their silence, had been one of the many medical professionals working on Harry's case. They were bound by confidentiality, but the surgeon ultimately revealed the shocking details of what actually happened. Harry had not just collapsed from stress. He had collapsed because of a serious medical condition that threatened his life. The procedure he underwent was risky, and the consequences of it were unknown to the public until this revelation came to light. What kind of procedure was it? Why was it considered so high risk? These are the questions that we'll unpack in this investigation, exploring not just the details of the surgery itself, but also the impact of keeping such a critical matter hidden. The truth about Harry's collapse didn't just affect him. It affected the entire narrative the Sussexes had been selling. It raised questions about their authenticity, their honesty, and most importantly, their priorities. Was this about protecting Harry? Or was it about protecting the image they had so carefully crafted? The impact on their relationship with the royal family, as well as their public image, is still unfolding. This story isn't just about a prince's health. It's about the wider implications for how public figures handle personal crises. It's about the delicate dance between privacy and public persona. How far would you go to protect your image, even if it meant hiding the truth about your health? And how far should the public be allowed to go in prying into the lives of those they follow so closely? As we dig deeper into this story, we will uncover the extent to which Meghan Markle's role in concealing the truth has shaped the narrative surrounding Prince Harry's health crisis. We will hear from medical professionals, insiders, and experts, all weighing in on the shocking events that unfolded in private. The time has come for the truth to be told, and we'll be following the thread all the way to the heart of the matter. As new details continue to emerge, this investigation promises to expose the hidden world of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the secrets that they never wanted us to know, and the impact of their decisions on their future. When news breaks of a royal figure suffering a medical emergency, it often feels like a dramatic headline designed to captivate the public's interest. But what happens when the medical emergency is far more severe than anyone could have anticipated, and it's concealed from the very people who should be in the know? Prince Harry, already a figure under intense scrutiny, found himself at the center of an ordeal that would change his life and his public narrative forever. It began with a simple, private incident, a collapse that left Prince Harry in critical condition. What was initially perceived as a result of stress or exhaustion, typical in the life of someone as publicly exposed as Harry, soon turned into something much more sinister. His collapse was not just from overwork or fatigue, but from a serious underlying neurological condition that required immediate intervention. This isn't the first time the world has been made aware of Harry's struggles with stress and mental health. He's spoken candidly about the trauma of losing his mother, Princess Diana, and the pressures of being in the public eye from a young age. Over the years, he has fought to reconcile his mental well-being with the expectations placed on him as a member of the royal family. But this was something entirely different. This collapse wasn't just a result of emotional strain. It was a terrifying and dangerous health crisis that could have altered the course of his life. In the hours following his collapse, Prince Harry was rushed to a private hospital in Los Angeles, where he would undergo a procedure that, according to multiple sources, was classified as a high-risk neurological intervention. The procedure was necessary because Harry's collapse was linked to an underlying neurological issue that had, until that point, gone undiagnosed or at least unacknowledged publicly. What had triggered this crisis? Was it something that had been building for years? And why hadn't the royal family, or the public, been made aware of it sooner? The initial moments after the collapse were chaotic. Meghan Markle, his wife, was reportedly by his side throughout the ordeal. But according to insiders, her behavior in those early hours was unsettling. Rather than immediately calling the royal family, as one might expect for a member of the royal family undergoing a medical emergency, Meghan reportedly instructed hospital staff not to alert anyone. Instead, she insisted on controlling the narrative from the very beginning, claiming that Harry's collapse was simply a result of exhaustion. This claim, though not entirely inaccurate, was far from the full truth and set the stage for a massive cover-up. Why would Meghan decide to downplay such a serious event? Why choose to conceal the truth when the very life of her husband could be at risk? The answer, many believe, lies in the power of their media brand and the lengths they were willing to go to protect it. In the weeks prior to Harry's collapse, the couple had been working hard to build their image in Hollywood and beyond. With multiple lucrative deals on the horizon, including their Netflix and Spotify contracts, their public image was more critical than ever. The revelation that Prince Harry had undergone emergency surgery could potentially jeopardize everything they had worked for, creating a distraction that could harm their carefully crafted narrative of a young, healthy couple reinventing themselves outside the royal fold. Insiders close to the couple suggest that Meghan was particularly concerned about how such a revelation would be handled in the press. The royal family, with all of its resources, would have surely been made aware of the severity of the situation, and once that information leaked, it would be difficult to control the narrative. Instead of letting the world know that Harry was in critical condition and had undergone a serious medical procedure, Meghan allegedly made the decision to keep the truth under wraps, opting for the explanation of exhaustion instead. But why exhaust herself in the pursuit of controlling this story? Was it truly just about the brand deals, or was there a deeper fear at play? For Meghan, the spotlight had always been both a blessing and a curse. Since her marriage to Harry, she had found herself at the center of a media storm, and each new chapter in their life together seemed to bring with it more attention, more speculation, and more criticism. Was this just another example of Meghan trying to maintain her image and keep the spotlight on her family's narrative? As the hours ticked by, Harry's condition remained critical. It wasn't until the following day, after Meghan had spent hours in private consultations with medical staff, that she finally relented and allowed some members of the royal family to be informed. But by then, the situation had already been framed as something far less severe than it actually was. Meghan had crafted the story, spun it in a way that would seem plausible but would conceal the full extent of Harry's medical crisis. What we now know, based on leaked hospital records, is that Prince Harry's situation was far worse than what the public had been told. He was not simply exhausted. Harry had suffered a health scare that could have had serious long-term implications for his life, and the decision to hide this from the public was one that would prove to have massive consequences. The surgeon who later came forward and revealed the details of Harry's procedure confirmed that it was, indeed, a high-risk surgery. The doctors who were involved in Harry's care had been told by Meghan not to alert anyone, especially the royal family, because of concerns over how it would look to the media. This wasn't a case of simple exhaustion. It was a medical emergency that, according to the surgeon, could have led to permanent damage had it not been addressed in time. Yet, the decision to keep Harry's medical crisis under wraps wasn't just about the immediate aftermath. It was about a broader strategy. Meghan's refusal to allow the story to be reported accurately speaks to a much larger issue at play. The way Harry and Meghan were managing their own narrative, and the fear that the truth could derail their carefully laid plans. With the media and the royal family, the two of them were caught between managing public expectations, protecting their personal lives, and keeping up with the demands of the entertainment industry. It was a delicate balancing act, and one that seemed to be crumbling before their eyes. As the story of Harry's collapse and emergency procedure began to leak out, it quickly became clear that this wasn't just a medical issue. It was a political one as well. Prince Harry's relationship with the royal family, already strained due to their departure from royal duties, would undoubtedly be tested further by the revelation that the truth about his health had been hidden for so long. The more we learn about what happened during those critical hours, the more it becomes apparent that the stakes were far higher than anyone could have imagined. What had seemed like a simple health scare was really a tipping point in Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family, their public image, and their future. Was this the moment when everything changed for them, when their carefully constructed world began to unravel? This chapter in Harry's life, hidden from public view for so long, reveals not just the fragility of his health, but also the complex web of media manipulation and family dynamics that surrounded it. What will the royal family do when they find out? And how will Meghan's actions affect the future of the Sussexes and their relationship with the monarchy? These questions, and many more, will continue to linger as the full story unfolds. As the shocking details of Prince Harry's medical emergency began to emerge, one key question lingered over everything. Why did Meghan Markle choose to downplay the severity of the situation? Why did she allegedly orchestrate a cover-up, choosing to present her husband's collapse as nothing more than exhaustion when the truth was far more sinister? The answer, it seems, lies in a complex web of motivations, fears, and the relentless pressure to maintain a certain public image. To understand Meghan's actions, it's important to first consider the enormous weight of the expectations placed on her and Harry's shoulders. Since their departure from royal duties, the couple had worked tirelessly to build a new life in Hollywood, focusing on their media deals and charitable ventures. They had left behind the structured, sometimes stifling world of the British monarchy to carve out a new path, one that would allow them to control their narrative, their image, and their future. At the center of this new life were lucrative contracts with major entertainment companies like Netflix and Spotify. These deals, which were reportedly worth millions of dollars, required a perfect public image to ensure that the couple remained marketable to their audience. The world was watching as Meghan and Harry transformed from royal figures into global media personalities, and every move they made was scrutinized by the press. The stakes were incredibly high. Any scandal, any perceived weakness, could jeopardize their carefully crafted brand. When Prince Harry collapsed, it was more than just a health scare, it was a potential crisis for their future. The couple had already been facing mounting criticism for their move to California and their growing media presence. They had positioned themselves as a new kind of royalty, one that didn't need the traditional constraints of the royal family. But what if the truth about Harry's health came to light? What if it painted a picture of vulnerability, weakness, or imperfection? Could the world still view them as powerful, in control, and capable of driving the narrative? For Meghan, the decision to conceal the truth about Harry's health was, according to sources, a calculated one. Rather than face the potential backlash of revealing the full extent of Harry's collapse, Meghan allegedly chose to spin the story, downplaying the severity of the situation and framing it as something much more mundane. The official line was that Harry had simply been exhausted from the pressures of his new life and needed rest. This explanation, while not entirely inaccurate, was far from the full story. But why was this necessary? Why not simply tell the truth and allow the public to understand the gravity of the situation? For Meghan, the fear of the truth getting out was palpable. The couple had carefully cultivated an image of youthful, healthy, and vibrant personalities who were forging their own path outside the royal family. Revealing that Harry had undergone an emergency procedure after collapsing from a neurological issue would have shattered that image. It would have painted them as weak, vulnerable, and, worst of all, human. In the world of Hollywood and entertainment, vulnerability can be a double-edged sword. While it can humanize a celebrity, it can also detract from their appeal, especially for those trying to maintain control over their narrative. Meghan and Harry's success in the entertainment industry depended on maintaining a certain level of perfection and control. Anything that could derail this, such as a serious health crisis, had to be carefully managed. According to insiders, Meghan knew that if the truth about Harry's collapse were revealed, it could hurt their deals and make them appear unreliable or unstable. The image they had worked so hard to cultivate would be tarnished. Yet, in her decision to conceal the truth, Meghan not only put her husband's health at risk, but also manipulated the narrative in a way that ultimately added more layers of secrecy and mistrust to their relationship with the royal family. It wasn't just about protecting the couple's brand. It was about controlling how the world saw them. The royal family, known for its public displays of unity and stoicism, would have been in an uproar if they had known the full extent of Harry's medical crisis. Meghan reportedly feared that revealing the truth would not only cause chaos in the royal family, but also add fuel to the fire of the press's constant speculation about their relationship and motivations. The cover-up wasn't just about keeping the media in the dark. It was about avoiding judgment from those who had long criticized the Sussexes for stepping away from royal life. Meghan, according to those close to her, knew that revealing Harry's health issues could lead to even more scrutiny from the public and the press. The timing couldn't have been worse. With the couple's Netflix deal being their most high-profile venture, any sign of weakness could tarnish their ability to maintain their image as influencers, philanthropists, and media moguls. In the cutthroat world of celebrity media, perception was everything. As Harry's condition worsened, Meghan reportedly continued to keep the truth hidden from even their closest allies. Hospital staff, bound by confidentiality agreements, were told not to speak of Harry's condition or the procedure he had undergone. They were instructed to keep the narrative simple. Harry was tired, and he needed rest. The real story was buried under layers of secrecy and manipulation. The public, meanwhile, was fed the version of events that Meghan had carefully crafted. Harry's collapse was spun into a story of a man overwhelmed by the pressures of life and work, someone who had simply overexerted himself. But as the truth began to surface through leaked hospital records, it became clear that the collapse had been far more serious than Meghan had let on. The world was left to wonder what else had been hidden from the public eye. What lengths would Meghan go to in order to control the narrative and protect her family's brand? As the story unraveled, the question remained, what were the consequences of Meghan's actions? Did her decision to hide Harry's health crisis ultimately damage their relationship with the royal family, the public, and even their media partners? The fallout from this cover-up would not only affect their image but also their credibility as public figures. If the world knew the extent of their deception, would it change the way people viewed them? In hindsight, Meghan's role in the cover-up seems like a desperate attempt to maintain control in a world where public perception is everything. But in doing so, she may have only deepened the divide between herself, Harry, and the very family they tried to distance themselves from. What had been intended as a brief escape from royal life became a high-stakes gamble, one that would have far-reaching consequences for them both. When the news of Prince Harry's emergency medical procedure was first reported, many believed it to be a simple, isolated incident, just another moment in the whirlwind life of the Duke of Sussex. However, what followed would shatter that perception, revealing not just a routine hospital visit, but a carefully concealed health crisis of a scale no one could have imagined. The crucial turning point came when confidential hospital records were leaked to the public, exposing the full extent of Harry's condition and how the truth had been deliberately suppressed by Meghan Markle. The leaked records, which were first shared with select media outlets, gave a detailed account of Harry's treatment and recovery. These documents were far more revealing than any public statement had suggested. According to the records, Prince Harry's collapse was caused by a neurological condition that required immediate medical intervention. The diagnosis was not as benign as the story Meghan had initially crafted. There were no simple claims of exhaustion, no vague explanations about needing rest. The condition was serious, the kind of issue that, left untreated, could lead to lasting damage, even permanent disability. The hospital records revealed that Harry had been admitted to a private Los Angeles hospital after collapsing at home. He had been suffering from a sudden and severe neurological episode that left him unconscious and barely responsive. Doctors diagnosed him with a condition that affected his brain's ability to function normally, requiring a high-risk procedure to prevent further complications. The exact details of the condition were carefully withheld from the public, but the surgeon's notes made it clear that the procedure was essential to Harry's survival and health. The severity of Harry's condition raised immediate questions. Why was this kept hidden for so long? Why was the public fed a story of exhaustion, when the truth was so much more serious? According to sources close to the situation, Meghan Markle had played a pivotal role in ensuring that these hospital records never saw the light of day. The documents were kept under tight wraps, and even those closest to the couple were unaware of the full extent of Harry's condition. Meghan's role in the cover-up began to come into sharper focus when one of the hospital staff members, who had been involved in Harry's treatment, spoke anonymously to the press. This whistleblower provided key details about Meghan's direct involvement in ensuring that the hospital staff kept the details of Harry's condition private. According to the source, Meghan had specifically asked the doctors and nurses not to inform the royal family or the media about the real nature of Harry's health issue. Instead, she insisted that Harry's collapse be framed as nothing more than a result of overwork. It quickly became clear that Meghan's decision wasn't just about keeping Harry's health crisis private. It was about controlling the narrative and protecting the couple's public image. The royal family, who had always been kept in the loop about significant medical events, were not notified about Harry's collapse until after the media had already begun reporting on the situation. Meghan's decision to delay informing the royals was seen as a strategic move to buy time, ensuring that the media narrative would remain in her control. The leaked hospital records further revealed that, when Meghan finally did inform the royal family, she downplayed the situation even more, claiming that Harry was recovering and in good spirits. The official statement from their representatives only added to the confusion, with Harry's condition being described as nothing more than a case of exhaustion and stress. But the reality, as the records made clear, was much darker. The surgeon who performed Harry's procedure was one of the few people who knew the full truth. Their decision to break their silence and speak to the press was a turning point in the investigation. In an exclusive interview, the surgeon detailed the complex and high-risk nature of the procedure. They explained that the surgery had been performed on Harry's brain in response to a condition that could have potentially caused long-term damage. According to the surgeon, the procedure was not something that could be classified as routine or easily dismissed as a minor health scare. It was life-threatening, and the recovery process would be long and difficult. The surgeon's account of the procedure painted a much more alarming picture of Harry's health. It was revealed that Harry had been unconscious for several hours before being stabilized and placed under sedation. The medical team had worked quickly to address the condition, but there was no doubt that had it not been caught in time, Harry's prognosis could have been far worse. The surgeon was adamant that the decision to hide the true nature of the situation from the public could have dangerous long-term consequences, both for Harry's physical health and for his mental well-being. What the surgeon's account made clear was that Harry's collapse wasn't just a one-time event. It was part of a larger issue that had been building over time. The stress and emotional toll of Harry's life, compounded by the intense pressure from the media and public scrutiny, had likely played a significant role in triggering the neurological episode. In a private moment of reflection, the surgeon speculated that the constant pressure Harry had been under, both as a member of the royal family and as a public figure, had likely contributed to the underlying health issue. Yet, the most shocking aspect of the surgeon's testimony was the revelation that Meghan had been fully aware of the seriousness of Harry's condition but had chosen not to disclose it to anyone. This, according to the surgeon, was an intentional decision made to protect the couple's media empire. At a time when they were already facing intense scrutiny for stepping away from royal duties, Meghan allegedly feared that the truth about Harry's health would further tarnish their carefully crafted public image. The question that followed was, what did Meghan stand to gain by hiding the truth? The answer seemed to lie in the couple's ongoing deals with Netflix, Spotify, and other media companies. Their image, their brand, and their ability to continue profiting from their story depended on maintaining an air of perfection and control. The idea of Harry being seriously ill, undergoing a high-risk procedure, and fighting for his health was not part of the narrative they had created. It was far too messy, far too vulnerable. In the world of Hollywood and media, vulnerability can be seen as a liability, especially for high-profile personalities like Meghan and Harry. As the hospital records continued to leak, the public's perception of Meghan and Harry began to shift. The couple's once-touted narrative of taking control of their lives and making their own way outside the royal family began to feel less authentic. The cover-up raised questions about their sincerity and whether they were truly being transparent with their audience. If they were willing to hide the truth about something as serious as Harry's health, what else were they hiding? The leak of these hospital records was a game-changer, and it became clear that the truth was far more complicated than the public had been led to believe. In the days following the leak, the press erupted with new questions and accusations, and Harry and Meghan found themselves facing a new kind of scrutiny. One that went beyond their personal lives and into the very heart of their public image. What had been a simple health issue had now become a matter of public trust, and the couple's ability to control their narrative was no longer guaranteed. As the details of Harry's condition continued to unfold, one thing became clear: the truth had a way of coming out, no matter how tightly it was kept under wraps. Meghan's decision to hide the full story of Harry's collapse had set in motion a chain of events that no amount of media manipulation could stop. The question remained, how would they recover from this? And more importantly, would they ever be able to regain the public's trust? When the hospital records detailing Prince Harry's serious health crisis were leaked, the public was left in shock, but the royal family's response was equally critical. The nature of the leak and the revelation that Harry's medical condition had been concealed from the family and the media raised questions about trust, transparency, and the future of Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal institution. As the full details began to surface, the royal family found itself in a difficult position, caught between protecting one of its own and grappling with the reality of the couple's increasingly fractured relationship with the monarchy. The royal family's initial reaction was one of stunned silence. In keeping with their long-standing tradition of not commenting on personal health matters, the palace declined to provide a statement in the immediate aftermath of the leak. However, behind closed doors, the fallout from the disclosure was intense. The family, particularly Prince Charles and Queen Elizabeth, were reportedly horrified by the extent of Harry's health problems and by the fact that the true nature of his condition had been kept hidden for so long. The matter of Harry's health was not just a private concern, it had become a matter of national importance. As a senior member of the royal family, Harry's health was something that affected not only his family but also the public's perception of the monarchy as a whole. The royal family's reputation for stoicism, privacy, and control was a hallmark of their public image. To have one of its own members fall seriously ill, only to have the truth concealed by the very people who were supposed to protect him, was seen as a betrayal of the highest order. Prince Charles, who had long been concerned about the growing distance between Harry and the royal family, was particularly disturbed by the breach of trust. In the days following the leak, sources close to the Prince of Wales indicated that he was deeply upset by the lack of communication from Harry and Meghan during such a critical moment. While Harry's health had been kept from the public, the royal family had been entirely in the dark about the severity of the situation until the hospital records were made public. This left the family to process not only the shock of Harry's collapse but also the realization that their son and brother had been suffering in silence, with his wife allegedly making decisions on his behalf that had serious consequences. The Queen, too, was reportedly taken aback by the news. Known for her reserved demeanor and cautious approach to royal matters, she had always maintained a strong sense of duty to the crown and her family. However, the fact that Harry's medical emergency had been hidden from her and the rest of the family raised questions about Meghan's influence over her husband and her role in making such critical decisions without consulting anyone. The Queen's advisors reportedly briefed her on the situation, but her public statement on the matter was carefully worded, focusing on Harry's recovery and the family's concern for his well-being. As the details of the cover-up continued to unfold, it became clear that the royal family was caught in a dilemma. On one hand, they had a responsibility to support Harry, their beloved son and grandson. On the other, they had to address the fact that Meghan and Harry's decision to conceal such a serious health issue reflected a larger breakdown in communication and trust within the family. This wasn't just about one health scare. It was about the growing rift between the Sussexes and the monarchy, which had been simmering ever since Harry and Meghan stepped back from their royal duties. The situation also placed the royal family in a difficult position in terms of public perception. The British public, who had long followed Harry's every move, was now faced with a stark contrast between the carefully curated image of the Sussexes and the reality of what had been happening behind closed doors. The royal family, known for their unwavering public composure, found themselves grappling with a scandal that was completely out of their control. While Meghan and Harry had attempted to distance themselves from the royal family, their actions had inadvertently brought the monarchy into the spotlight once again, forcing the royals to respond. In response to the leak, the palace issued a brief statement, expressing their concern for Harry's health and confirming that he was recovering from the procedure. However, the statement stopped short of addressing the broader issue of the cover-up. This led to even more speculation and public outrage, as many felt that the royal family was trying to downplay the seriousness of the situation. Public opinion was divided. While some sympathized with Harry's struggles, others saw the entire episode as yet another example of the Sussexes prioritizing their own brand over the well-being of the family and the public's right to know the truth. The royal family's handling of the situation also raised questions about how they would deal with the growing tensions within the family. Could this latest scandal further strain Harry's already tenuous relationship with his father, Prince Charles? The two had been at odds for some time, with Harry's decision to leave royal duties and move to the United States serving as a major point of contention. The revelation that Harry had been suffering in silence while Meghan controlled the narrative only added fuel to the fire. Sources close to the royal family revealed that Charles had attempted to reach out to Harry during this period, but the communication was reportedly strained. The idea of Harry's medical condition being kept secret from the family was a particularly difficult pill to swallow for a family that prided itself on its ability to come together in times of crisis. With Meghan and Harry's relationship with the royal family already strained, this breach of trust only deepened the divide. Despite the growing tension, the royal family continued to express their public support for Harry's recovery. The palace made it clear that their priority was Harry's health and well-being, and they encouraged the public to respect the family's privacy during this difficult time. But behind the scenes, the fallout from the cover-up was far from over. As the story gained traction in the media, it was clear that Meghan and Harry's attempt to control the narrative had failed. What had started as a personal health crisis for Harry had evolved into a full-blown public scandal that threatened to tarnish the family's carefully managed image. As the royal family processed the fallout, questions began to emerge about what the future held for Harry and Meghan. Could they continue to maintain their independent life in California, free from the constraints of royal duties? Or would the weight of their decisions force them back into the fold, where the expectations of the monarchy and the British public might once again take center stage? Would Harry and Meghan's rift with the royal family ever be repaired? Or had this latest scandal created a permanent rift that no amount of public relations could fix? The royal family's response to Harry's medical crisis and the subsequent cover-up was a defining moment in the couple's relationship with the monarchy. It raised serious questions about the future of the Sussexes, their place within the royal fold, and the public's trust in their ability to handle personal matters with transparency and integrity. As Harry continued his recovery, it became clear that the consequences of the cover-up would echo through the monarchy for years to come. The leak of Prince Harry's hospital records was like a spark that ignited an uncontrollable firestorm in the media. What had initially been a private medical emergency for the Duke of Sussex quickly turned into a sensationalized global story, dominating headlines and commanding attention from every corner of the world. The public, who had been fed a narrative of Harry's collapse due to exhaustion, was now faced with the startling truth that the prince's health crisis was far more serious than anyone had imagined, and that it had been deliberately concealed by those closest to him. The public's reaction was swift and divided. On one hand, there was a wave of sympathy for Harry, with many feeling that he had been unfairly thrust into the spotlight and that his medical condition had been mishandled by those who should have cared for him. The idea of a royal figure suffering in silence, unable to seek help or even share the truth of his condition with the people who loved him, struck a chord with many. The narrative of an overworked, overexposed royal who had been pushed to the breaking point resonated with the public's growing concerns over the mental health of public figures and the toll of constant media scrutiny. However, the other side of the coin was far more critical. Meghan Markle, who had long been a polarizing figure in the media, found herself under intense scrutiny once again. The leak revealed that it wasn't just Harry's health that had been hidden, it was the role that Meghan had played in controlling the narrative. For many, this was the final straw. The decision to keep such a serious health issue under wraps, ostensibly to protect their brand, was seen as a betrayal of the public's trust. Meghan's calculated control of the situation only added fuel to the fire, as many questioned her motives and whether she had put her husband's health at risk in the name of self-promotion and media control. In the immediate aftermath of the leak, the media's coverage of the situation was relentless. News outlets around the world picked up the story, and soon, the details of Harry's collapse were plastered across tabloids, broadsheets, and online platforms. Headlines screamed about the prince's secret surgery, the role Meghan had played in keeping it hidden, and the implications for the couple's future. What had been a deeply personal and private matter had become a public spectacle, and the scrutiny was far from over. The media storm was not just about the story itself, it was about the way the story was told. The framing of the situation was crucial, and different outlets took vastly different approaches. Some media outlets focused on Harry's health crisis with sympathy, painting him as a victim of the pressures of fame and the royal family. These reports emphasized the need for mental health awareness and supported Harry's decision to step away from royal duties. Others, however, were far more critical, focusing on the alleged cover-up and questioning the couple's integrity. These outlets painted Meghan as the mastermind behind the deception, accusing her of using her husband's health as a pawn in their larger media strategy. As the media frenzy grew, Meghan and Harry's attempts to manage the situation became increasingly evident. In an effort to control the narrative, the couple released a carefully worded statement through their spokesperson, expressing Harry's gratitude for the medical care he had received and confirming that he was recovering. However, the statement was vague and failed to address the central issue. Why had the true nature of Harry's health crisis been hidden from the public, and why had Meghan chosen to keep such a serious matter from the royal family? The lack of transparency in the couple's response only fueled further speculation and left many questions unanswered. For Meghan, the media coverage of the leak was nothing new. Since she and Harry first stepped into the public eye, Meghan had been the subject of intense media scrutiny, often portrayed as a divisive figure. Her critics had long accused her of manipulating the media for her own benefit, using her marriage to Harry as a stepping stone to fame and fortune. The leak of the hospital records only added fuel to these accusations. Many of Meghan's detractors pointed to the fact that she had been the one to insist on controlling the narrative, claiming that she had put her own ambitions above Harry's health and well-being. However, Meghan's supporters defended her actions, arguing that the pressure of living in the public eye, especially under the constant scrutiny of the British tabloids, had led her to make decisions that were in her family's best interest. According to her supporters, the cover-up was a response to the overwhelming pressure they were under to maintain their image and to protect their family from the unrelenting media attention. In this view, Meghan was simply doing what any mother and wife would do, trying to shield her husband from further harm. But for many, the damage had already been done. The leak of the hospital records had stripped away the veneer of control that Meghan and Harry had so carefully cultivated. The public now saw a different side of the couple, a side that was more vulnerable and flawed than they had ever let on. The narrative of a picture-perfect couple forging their own path outside the royal family had crumbled, replaced by the reality of a family in crisis. The media's focus shifted from Harry's health to the question of how the couple had managed their personal struggles and whether they had put their brand above their family's well-being. The leak also raised questions about the couple's relationship with the royal family. As details about the cover-up emerged, speculation grew about whether Harry and Meghan's strained relationship with the monarchy had played a role in their decision to keep the truth hidden. The royal family, it seemed, had been kept in the dark about Harry's health crisis, and many wondered if this was a sign of the continuing rift between the Sussexes and the rest of the family. The palace had been forced to respond to the scandal, but their response was muted, reflecting the delicate balance they had to maintain between supporting Harry and distancing themselves from the couple's increasingly controversial actions. For the British public, the media storm was a reflection of the growing disillusionment with the Sussexes. While many had once supported Harry and Meghan's decision to step away from royal duties, the cover-up surrounding Harry's health crisis added to the sense of betrayal that many felt. The idea that the couple, who had presented themselves as champions of transparency and openness, had hidden such a serious matter from the public, left many wondering whether they could still trust the couple's narrative. As the days turned into weeks, the media coverage only intensified. The couple's efforts to manage the fallout were met with mixed results. While some outlets continued to express sympathy for Harry, many were quick to point out the inconsistencies in the couple's story and the lack of transparency in their response. The narrative that had once been so carefully constructed now seemed fragile and incomplete, and the public was left with a sense of uncertainty about who the Sussexes really were. The media storm surrounding Harry's health crisis marked a turning point in the couple's relationship with both the public and the media. What had begun as an attempt to protect their brand had quickly turned into a full-blown scandal, one that left a lasting impact on their image and future prospects. Whether they would be able to recover from the damage done by the cover-up and the media frenzy that followed remained to be seen. When Prince Harry collapsed, the world was given a glimpse into the fragile health of someone who had been under constant public scrutiny for most of his life. What began as an isolated health scare, a sudden collapse in the privacy of his own home, quickly evolved into a public crisis that exposed not just his immediate vulnerability, but the long-term toll that years of stress and emotional pressure had taken on his physical well-being. The neurological procedure that Harry underwent was not something that could be easily dismissed. According to the leaked hospital records and the testimony of the surgeon involved, the procedure was high-risk and urgent, requiring quick intervention to prevent further complications. What the world didn't know at the time was that Harry had been suffering from an underlying condition for quite some time, one that had been exacerbated by years of stress, trauma, and a life lived under constant media attention. The truth about Harry's condition is not just about the immediate crisis. It's about the long-term impact that this health scare will have on him moving forward. While he may have survived the immediate danger, the reality is that the procedure he underwent does not guarantee a full recovery. The condition that caused his collapse was linked to stress-induced neurological degeneration, a condition that, if not managed properly, could lead to lasting health problems. The surgery, though successful in stabilizing Harry's condition, did not eliminate the risk that the underlying issue could resurface in the future. Harry's life, from the moment he was born, had been one of intense scrutiny, pressure, and public expectation. His position as a member of the royal family meant that his every move, every word, and every gesture was dissected by the media. This kind of constant attention, especially from a young age, took a psychological toll on Harry that few can truly understand. The loss of his mother, Princess Diana, at a young age was a trauma that would continue to haunt him throughout his life. The burden of living up to public expectations, coupled with the psychological scars left by Diana's tragic death, created a perfect storm for the mental and physical health challenges that Harry would face in adulthood. But it wasn't just the loss of his mother that affected him. It was the life he led as a member of the royal family. While many saw the monarchy as a symbol of stability and tradition, for Harry, it often felt like a gilded cage. The expectations placed upon him were immense, and the constant scrutiny from the press only added to the pressure. Even after stepping away from his royal duties, Harry's life remained under a microscope, as he and Meghan Markle sought to build a new life in California. The weight of this public and private pressure had a profound impact on Harry's health, and the collapse was a manifestation of the years of accumulated stress and emotional strain. The long-term impact of Harry's health crisis cannot be underestimated. Neurological conditions are complex, and recovery from such a procedure is never guaranteed. In the case of Harry, the surgery was necessary to address the immediate threat to his health, but the underlying condition could continue to cause problems in the future. The condition that Harry suffered from, while not publicly disclosed in full detail, appears to have been related to stress-induced neurodegeneration. This kind of condition is often exacerbated by continued stress, anxiety, and emotional trauma, and it can lead to cognitive decline, memory issues, and other neurological symptoms if not properly managed. Experts in the field of neurology and mental health have weighed in on the potential long-term effects of stress-induced neurodegeneration, and the prognosis is not always optimistic. For someone like Harry, who has spent much of his life in the public eye, the challenge of managing such a condition becomes even more difficult. The constant media attention, the pressures of living in the spotlight, and the emotional toll of dealing with personal and family issues only add to the risk of further health complications. While Harry is reportedly receiving ongoing care and treatment, the fact remains that his health will likely be a concern for years to come. Recovery from a neurological procedure is a lengthy process, and the impact of the underlying condition on his daily life cannot be underestimated. Simple tasks that once seemed effortless may now be more challenging for Harry, as the condition could affect his cognitive abilities and his ability to concentrate. The emotional toll of dealing with such a diagnosis is also significant, as Harry may struggle with feelings of uncertainty about his future and the long-term effects of the surgery. The psychological impact of the health crisis is another crucial factor that cannot be ignored. Harry has long been open about his struggles with mental health, particularly in the wake of his mother's death. In recent years, he has become a vocal advocate for mental health awareness, using his platform to encourage others to seek help and to prioritize their well-being. However, the reality of facing a serious neurological condition is a different kind of mental health challenge. Harry's emotional resilience, which had been tested time and time again throughout his life, would now be put to the ultimate test as he navigated the complexities of his recovery. The public's reaction to Harry's health crisis will also play a significant role in his long-term recovery. As the media storm continues to rage, Harry is left to grapple with the knowledge that his personal struggles are being dissected by millions of people around the world. The scrutiny, while nothing new to him, takes on a new level of intensity when the stakes are as high as they are now. The pressure to maintain a strong public image, especially as a father and husband, could add to the emotional burden that Harry already carries. For Meghan, the impact of Harry's health crisis is equally significant. As his wife and the person closest to him, she will play a pivotal role in his recovery. However, the strain on their relationship, brought on by the secrecy and the media storm, could add another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. Meghan has long been criticized for her role in managing the couple's public narrative, and the aftermath of this health crisis will only add to the scrutiny she faces. Her efforts to protect Harry and their family from the media could be seen as both a strength and a weakness, depending on how the public perceives her actions. The future for Harry, both personally and professionally, is now uncertain. While he may recover from the immediate effects of his neurological condition, the long-term impact of the stress and pressure he has endured will likely continue to affect him in ways that are not immediately visible. His health will require constant monitoring, and the emotional toll of his diagnosis may affect his relationships, his career, and his role within the public eye. As the world watches, Harry will have to find a way to balance his personal well-being with the public demands that have been placed on him since birth. As the details of Harry's health crisis continue to unfold, one thing is certain: the long-term impact on his life will be felt for years to come. Whether he will be able to fully recover, both physically and emotionally, is yet to be seen. What is clear, however, is that Harry's journey is far from over, and the future of the Duke of Sussex will be shaped by the decisions he makes in the coming months and years as he navigates the complexities of his health, his family, and his place in the world. The leak of Prince Harry's hospital records and the subsequent media frenzy did not just affect him, it cast a long shadow over Meghan Markle, whose public image had already been under intense scrutiny for years. As the details of Harry's health crisis began to surface, it became clear that Meghan's role in the cover-up would become the focal point of public discourse. What had been a personal decision, made in the privacy of their home, quickly spiraled into a scandal that would challenge Meghan's carefully curated image and shake the public's perception of her. For years, Meghan had been a polarizing figure. Some saw her as a modern-day princess, a woman who was redefining what it meant to be a royal in the 21st century. Others viewed her as a manipulator, someone who used her marriage to Prince Harry to catapult herself into the limelight and build a brand around her newfound celebrity. The controversy surrounding Harry's health crisis only added fuel to the fire, with many now questioning Meghan's motivations and the lengths she was willing to go to protect her and Harry's public image. In the wake of the leak, Meghan faced intense criticism for her role in hiding the truth about Harry's medical condition. The public, who had once sympathized with her struggles as a member of the royal family, now felt betrayed by the decision to conceal such a serious health issue. The media, which had long been fascinated by Meghan's every move, pounced on the opportunity to portray her as someone willing to sacrifice honesty and transparency in favor of protecting the couple's brand. The decision to keep Harry's health crisis under wraps, according to many critics, was emblematic of the couple's larger strategy of manipulating the media to suit their needs. Meghan and Harry had spent years positioning themselves as champions of transparency, equality, and social justice. Yet, when it came to the most intimate and important details of Harry's health, they chose secrecy over openness. For many, this felt like a betrayal of the very principles they had espoused in their plea. In the eyes of the public, Meghan's actions were seen as self-serving. Her role in orchestrating the cover-up suggested that she was more concerned with maintaining her family's media empire than with protecting her husband's health or being honest with the public. The idea that Meghan could prioritize her brand over the well-being of her husband struck a nerve with many, leading to a wave of backlash against her. The media's portrayal of Meghan shifted dramatically in the aftermath of the scandal. What had once been a narrative of a woman seeking independence from the royal family, working to forge her own path in the world, now became a story of a woman more interested in controlling her image than in telling the truth. Critics were quick to point out the contradictions in Meghan's public persona. She had long portrayed herself as an advocate for mental health, as someone who was open about her own struggles with anxiety and depression. But now, many wondered whether this openness was genuine, or if it had been part of a larger strategy to cultivate a certain image, an image that was, in many ways, at odds with the reality of what was happening behind closed doors. For Meghan, the stakes could not have been higher. Her reputation, already fragile due to the media's relentless scrutiny, now hung in the balance. The backlash was swift and harsh. The public, once enamored with the idea of Harry and Meghan as a modern royal couple, now saw them in a different light. The image of the couple as victims of an oppressive monarchy, seeking to carve out a life of their own, began to unravel as more details about the cover-up emerged. Meghan's critics were vocal in their condemnation. Many saw her as a manipulator who had used her marriage to Harry to gain fame and influence, only to prioritize her own career over her husband's well-being. For these critics, the cover-up was the final proof that Meghan was more interested in her own success than in being a supportive and loving partner to Harry. The decision to hide the truth about his health crisis, they argued, demonstrated her willingness to sacrifice honesty and transparency for the sake of preserving their brand. But Meghan's supporters were not silent either. Many of them came to her defense, arguing that the pressures of living under constant media scrutiny had pushed Meghan to make difficult decisions that were in the best interest of her family. They pointed out that Meghan had never been given the same level of support or understanding from the press as other members of the royal family. The relentless attacks on her character, they argued, had forced Meghan to take extreme measures to protect her family's privacy. Despite the vocal support from some quarters, the damage to Meghan's image was undeniable. The scandal had exposed the complexities of her public persona, and the public's perception of her shifted accordingly. What had once been seen as a woman fighting for her independence was now viewed as someone who had gone too far in her efforts to control the narrative. The decision to conceal Harry's health crisis, in particular, cast a long shadow over her reputation. The public, once willing to overlook Meghan's controversial statements and actions, now began to question her integrity. The long-term consequences for Meghan's career were also significant. As the public's perception of her continued to shift, so too did her standing in the entertainment industry. Meghan had been building a successful career as a media mogul, with lucrative deals in place with Netflix and Spotify. However, the leak of Harry's health crisis and the subsequent fallout raised questions about whether her brand could survive the scandal. Major media outlets began to re-examine their relationships with Meghan, and some even questioned whether her deals would be affected by the growing controversy. For Meghan, the fallout from the scandal could have far-reaching consequences for her future prospects. While she had once been seen as a rising star in Hollywood and a powerful voice for social justice, the public's changing perception of her could make it difficult for her to maintain the same level of influence. In the cutthroat world of entertainment, where public opinion can make or break a career, Meghan's ability to recover from the scandal would depend on her ability to rebuild trust with the public. The pressure on Meghan was not just professional, it was personal. The scrutiny of her actions, her motivations, and her character was a constant reminder of the price of fame. As a public figure, Meghan had always known that her life would be under intense scrutiny, but the scale of the backlash she faced after the cover-up was unlike anything she had encountered before. The intense media attention, the public criticism, and the ongoing speculation about her marriage and her future had the potential to take a significant toll on her mental health. For Meghan, the fallout from the cover-up was not just a matter of public perception, it was a test of her resilience. Could she weather the storm and rebuild her image, or would the scandal be the defining moment of her public life? The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the impact of the cover-up would reverberate far beyond the immediate aftermath of the health crisis. Meghan's reputation, once untarnished and full of promise, was now in jeopardy, and how she navigated the coming months would determine her future in the public eye. In the aftermath of Prince Harry's health crisis and the subsequent scandal over the cover-up, the royal family found itself facing one of the most challenging dilemmas in its recent history. The news of Harry's emergency procedure, coupled with the secrecy surrounding the situation, had shaken the monarchy to its core. The public's reaction, fueled by leaked hospital records and the revelation of Meghan Markle's involvement in controlling the narrative, left the royal family grappling with how to handle the situation. Harry and Meghan's relationship with the monarchy had already been strained, but now the stakes were even higher, and the question was, how would the royal family respond? The royal family, known for its tradition of maintaining a stoic and unified front, found itself caught in an internal crisis that could no longer be ignored. The monarchy had weathered numerous scandals over the years, from Princess Diana's tragic death to the controversial abdication of King Edward VIII, but this situation was different. This time, the royal family's public image and the integrity of its most senior members were at risk. As Harry's health became a matter of public concern, so too did the decisions made by his wife, Meghan, to conceal the severity of the situation. The royal family's next steps would determine not only how they managed this scandal, but also how the public would view the monarchy going forward. For Prince Charles, the fallout from the scandal was deeply personal. As Harry's father, he had long been concerned about his son's well-being, and the revelation that Harry had suffered such a serious medical emergency without informing him only added to their strained relationship. Charles had already been caught in the crossfire of the Sussexes' decision to step away from royal duties, and now he was facing the fallout from his son's decision to conceal his health crisis. The relationship between Charles and Harry had been tense for years, with public differences on everything from royal duties to personal matters. This latest revelation would likely deepen the divide between them, making it harder for them to reconcile in the future. At the same time, the royal family's efforts to protect Harry were complicated by the growing public perception of Meghan's role in the cover-up. While the palace had long maintained its policy of not commenting on personal matters, the severity of this situation left little room for silence. The palace had already issued a statement expressing concern for Harry's health, but it became clear that the issue was not going to go away quietly. As more details emerged about Meghan's involvement in controlling the narrative, the royal family was forced to confront the growing backlash from both the public and the media. Queen Elizabeth II, the matriarch of the family, was faced with a delicate balancing act. She had always been the embodiment of royal duty and tradition, and her response to this crisis would be closely scrutinized. In the past, the Queen had been able to maintain a sense of unity within the royal family, despite their differences. But this scandal was different. It was not just a matter of family dynamics. It was a matter of public trust, and the royal family's ability to weather the storm would depend on their ability to navigate the public's growing dissatisfaction with the couple's actions. Despite the complexities of the situation, the royal family knew that they had to support Harry through his recovery. The public, for the most part, rallied around him, expressing sympathy for his health crisis and his struggles with the pressures of royal life. However, the continued secrecy and manipulation of the situation raised questions about whether the royal family could continue to stand by Harry and Meghan, especially as more details came to light about their attempts to control the narrative. The palace faced an uncomfortable truth. Harry and Meghan's actions, while likely motivated by a desire to protect their brand and their family, had done irreparable damage to their relationship with the royal family. As the media frenzy continued to grow, the royal family's communications team was forced to walk a fine line. They had to show support for Harry without explicitly endorsing the secrecy that had characterized the couple's actions. A carefully worded statement from the palace emphasized Harry's recovery and the importance of respecting the family's privacy. However, the underlying message was clear. The royal family was distancing itself from the actions of Harry and Meghan, particularly as the cover-up of Harry's health crisis continued to unravel. The royal family's response to the scandal was not just about managing public perception, it was about maintaining the integrity of the monarchy itself. For centuries, the royal family had been a symbol of stability, duty, and tradition. But in recent years, the institution had faced increasing challenges to its relevance in a modern world that demanded transparency and accountability. The Sussexes' decision to step away from royal duties had already been seen as a break from tradition, and now the revelation of Harry's hidden medical crisis added another layer of complexity to their relationship with the monarchy. How could the royal family continue to operate as a cohesive unit when one of its members had chosen to conceal such a serious issue? In the aftermath of the leak, many speculated about the long-term consequences for Harry and Meghan's relationship with the royal family. Would they ever be welcomed back into the fold? Or had their actions irrevocably damaged their ties to the monarchy? The royal family, despite its efforts to show solidarity with Harry, was now faced with a new reality. The public perception of the Sussexes had changed, and it was unlikely that they would be able to repair their relationship with the monarchy anytime soon. For Harry, the road ahead was filled with uncertainty. His health, still fragile after the procedure, was only one concern among many. The emotional toll of the scandal and the public fallout was significant, and it would take time for him to heal both physically and mentally. But the bigger question remained, what was his future within the royal family? Would he continue to distance himself from the institution that he had once been a part of, or would he eventually seek reconciliation with his family? For Meghan, the situation was even more complex. Her role in the cover-up had cast a long shadow over her relationship with the royal family, and the damage to her image could have far-reaching consequences. The media, already quick to criticize her for every action, now had new ammunition to fuel their coverage. The public, once sympathetic to her struggles, now viewed her actions with suspicion. Meghan's relationship with the royal family had been fraught with tension since her marriage to Harry, and this scandal only exacerbated those issues. Could she ever truly find peace within the family? Or had her actions forever altered her place within the royal fold? The royal family's next move was critical in determining the future of the Sussexes and their relationship with the monarchy. The path ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges both personal and public. But one thing was certain, the events that had unfolded in the wake of Harry's health crisis would leave a lasting impact on the monarchy, shaping the future of the royal family for years to come.